And I think we're probably live because every time I'm sitting here thinking if we're live, we are live. So I'm going to guess we're live on Facebook. Hey, it's Tuesday. Got to be Tuesday. I guess not. It has to be, but every now and again we might go on a Thursday. But most of the time we're on a Tuesday, about 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern time with Higher Lead and Chill. Sean Dace back with you in the house. Got a really good guest on, but before I bring Eric on, I want to make sure that we're somewhere around here live, which I see we are. And then what I want to do is I want to remind everybody that we'll be going on next Tuesday. I don't know who the guest is next Tuesday. I can't remember. I know we've got Kirk Kempton coming up and a few other people coming up as we go. And we've got some economic news I want to talk about before we bring in our special guest, Eric. And we'll talk a little bit about some marketing and just about Eric, what he's up to. He's got a really cool academy thing he's been doing. It's been phenomenal with a lot of people doing a lot of good things with that. But let me just touch a little bit on some things happening in the market. The labor market's starting to soften up a little bit. I think it's a little bit seasonal right now. Thanksgiving, you got some things happening. The economy is I wouldn't say it's slowing because the consumer's still spending, but a couple things have certainly been changing with economic indicators. The unemployment rate has been pretty steady between about, I think the low we hit was 3.4%. That was in January and April of this year, 2023. Those were the two lows. Right now, we're about 3.6, 3.7%. It's been teetering back and forth between 3.5, 3.7. So that's remained pretty steady. The consumer spending, fairly steady. I always put the asterisks. I am not an economist. I watch CNBC a lot. I read a lot, and I try to keep my pulse on what's going on. So this is kind of like the non-scientific Sean Day, street smart kid from Cleveland, reporting the economic news to you, the labor market news. So I've always been watching the consumer. As long as the consumer spending, we're okay. Right now, the cash is pretty much gone from COVID. Credit card debt's starting to go up. That's pretty normal, though. So, it's nothing to be alarmed at this time. I have heard some conversations with a Home Depot CEO. I think it was maybe Target's CEO and a couple others that are concerned a little bit about the quantities of things that are being bought. So instead of buying, a couple of cases of beer or a couple of cases of pop, it's maybe a 12-pack. Instead of 3 cartons of eggs, they're buying a carton at a time. They're shopping a lot more, but they're being a lot more prudent on the quantity and the pricing. So that tells me it's maybe slowing down just a little bit, but the indicators are not showing that the consumers slowed down spending. All right. So the jobs report came out for October, and the jobs report was pretty low compared to what they were analyzing or expecting. The payrolls increased by 150,000 in October, which was less than what they were expecting. The unfortunate thing, maybe, I guess, is that government jobs, depending on how you look at it, was one of the higher hirings, 51,000 jobs in the government sector. Construction, though, this is very interesting. I'm going to talk about the housing market here a little bit and quickly, so we can get more exciting stuff happening and bring on Eric. But construction and housing seem to be doing okay still, which I am just stunned by that. I used to own a mortgage company for about 10 years back in the 90s and then got out in the 2003-ish, 2004-ish. Construction was behind government with as far as job creation in the month of October. Good news for us, some business services were up there. Manufacturing got crushed, minus 35,000 jobs. That's low. So we're going to be coming up, though, I think, with consumer spending and some of the job stuff. We're seasonal here. That holiday season's right on us right now. Thanksgiving's coming up in a couple of days. The holidays and Christmas and the other holidays in December are coming up. That usually means that our labor market gets a little tougher, but our businesses tend to slow down a little bit in December, unless you're maybe in the residential home cleaning space. So that offsets it a little bit. We'll see what the holiday season does and what that consumer does I think we'll be okay. There were some calls for recessions by the end of this year. I don't see that happening. Some people are saying that the Feds have settled down big time, which is good. So I think we're in a really good place. We got a little bit softening labor market. It seems that the Fed is done raising rates, at least for the next quarter, maybe 2 quarters, maybe for all of 2024. We don't know. So those are all good things, and the consumer spending. So I'm really kind of excited about what's going on. And the goofy thing, like I said, with the housing market, it stayed really strong with rates going up crazy fast. We're at about 7.5%, 8%, 30-year fixed mortgage rates, somewhere in there. I think historically over many, many years, that's a norm. That might even be right around the average a 30-year mortgage typically is. But when we're printing free money and rates are at like 2% and 2.5% on a 30-year mortgage for, whatever, 10 years or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden we go to 8% in less than a year, that's pretty fast. You would think the housing market would be really hurting with that. The supply is still very low, so the pricing has been okay. The problem is, though, for the first time, the housing market got hit for the month of October. So the interest rates, the very high prices because of low supply in the marketplace, sellers are still able to get that price. Multiple offers are still coming in on houses. But in October, house sales fell by, 14, sales were down 14.5% year over year. Okay. So previously owned homes were 4% lower in October compared with September, but home sales fell to a 13-year low in October. That's a big number. That's a really big number. So I'm going to be, I don't think there's a hell of a lot of people buying houses around the holidays compared to maybe summer. Usually people are sticking around for the holidays. You don't want to mess up jobs and moving and all that sort of thing. We'll see what happens in November and December. I think that's going to be real interesting to see what happens. So with all that said, I don't have any, issues, problems. I see really good things on the horizon. If you're selling a house, you better sell it real quick. That's the only thing I see. Other than that, man, it's smooth sailing as far as I can see. As long as you've got those 3 pillars that I always talk about, man, and that's recruiting or hiring, getting good people, leading them so that they stick around and having a great culture so that they are retained and they're with you for a long, long time. You get those 3 pillars down, man, and then it's time to chill. So that's why we're on hire, lead, and chill. So enough boring stuff about the economy. Excuse me. I've got a problem going on with, hang on here, I'm losing my voice. When you're a Browns fan and you go downtown to see the Browns Steelers game and it's down to 2 seconds left with a field goal and you got a bunch of terrible towels and Steelers fans sitting around you, you're going to lose your voice. Let me tell you that right now. Hell of a game. All right, I'm going to bring in Eric Trice. Eric, why don't you do this? Why don't you introduce yourself? Because there's some people that might not know who you are. Obviously, a lot of people do know who you are. Eric's a really good friend, really good customer of ours. And go ahead. While you're doing that, I'm going to share on some different groups to make sure everybody hears what we're going to be jamming about today.
Yeah, definitely. Man, so I guess in a nutshell, I own Absolute Fleet Washing, which is we're a mobile truck washing company. A little bit different from the traditional power washing company out there that kind of does a little bit of everything. We focus 100% on trucks, heavy equipment, and that sort of thing. Man, I think I got started like a lot of people. We just a side hustle, trying to make some extra cash, pay the bills, and started to get some traction and gain some momentum and saw a need in the market and just kind of went for it. Fast forward from side hustle to now, I think we've been in business for 8 years. I think we're in my 8th year. We'll do just shy of $2 million this year in gross revenue. We've got a staff of, I don't even know exactly day to day anymore.
That's awesome.
not that we turn over that much, but I think we're sitting around 14, somewhere between 14 and 16 is kind of where we've been floating the past 3 months. And yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. We like to do trucks. I think back in 2018 is when I decided to get rid of the residential side and just focus 100% on fleets. Just in our market, it's not it's a little bit seasonal here in Maryland. So we do have a winter. I mean, right now I don't know, it's nasty and raining at the moment, but most power washing companies are kind of wrapping things up around here right now. Depending, they might be able to work a little bit into December, depending on how weather goes. Some years it gets cold. Some years, like last year, we really didn't have a winter.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to lay people off until March of every year. I didn't want to try to have to go through that cycle of either laying them off, putting them on unemployment, trying to carry them, and then try to rehire again in the spring when the season kicks back off. I didn't really want to do Christmas lights, even though all my buddies that make a ton of money doing Christmas lights. It's just not me. I wanted to sit back and relax and enjoy the holidays and spend time with family and not be just grinding it out all the way through the end of the year. So yeah, I went all in on fleet so I could keep the staff year round and kind of build on the foundation that we had.
Yeah, I think that's all good stuff. Especially wanting to spend some time with your family, and I know you've got your first on the way in a couple months. So congratulations on that, man! It's awesome. Like I said, I just had one get a driver's license a couple weeks ago. So, that's a scary time, but it's also a good time because now I can say, hey, go get up to the store and get me something. I don't have to pick her up at midnight anymore because she's hanging with her buds and all that stuff. So I got a little free Uber. I wouldn't say free, but I do have an Uber thing going on with it.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm more than happy to right now. I guess that'll last a month, maybe, probably, right? So yeah, good stuff. One of the things that popped in my head when you were talking, Eric, was I know a lot of people just like you, hanging lights, man, doing well, making some good money doing it. I also know, and are very successful at it, and they're very good entrepreneurs. But I also know a few people that have gone out and really tried to get, I open up a new location, have several different services going on, and absolutely failed miserably at it. And it took a long time to rebound off of that. It's not always a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe based on who you are, timing wise, and some things like that. Because when you're focused in on one thing and you start to do it really, really well, you can make some really good things happen in a lot of people's lives doing it that way too. How did you stay disciplined enough and put your ego on the shelf? Because sometimes it's an ego thing, sometimes it's just a strategic thing. Sometimes you have a couple partners in one business and you're able to maybe play off one another's strengths and do those things. Why were you able to be so disciplined with that?
Man, that's a good question. I've always been a believer in focus on one thing and be really good at it instead of trying to, because the people you hire to wash trucks are not the same guys that are going to go out and wash houses,
Right.
And vice versa. They're just different. It takes a different eye, I guess, to do each one. One's a little bit more labor intensive. One's a little bit easier. It's just different. So it was easy to just stay focused because it was consistent, right? So the nice thing about washing trucks is you go out and you sell a customer, say that customer brings in $10,000 a year. They're going to bring in $10,000 this year, next year, the year after that, the year after that. Obviously, if you raise your prices, if you have a set rate, 3% a year or 5% or whatever it is, you can count on that. So going into January 1 of 24, I already know exactly what we should do for the year. I'm not chasing every customer. I'm not having to send out marketing, the way Facebook and Google change their algorithms all the time. Facebook might go from being the hottest ticket to Google's the hottest ticket to then you got to go to EDDM. And honestly, it's really a collaboration of everything to really to dial it in. But it's just, for me, it's so much more peace of mind to know, all right, this is what we got. We can build on this, and it's not like every single month you're starting from zero.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that there's a ton of guys out there that do really well doing houses and roofs and lights and all that stuff. So I mean, there's definitely you can do it. I just found that fleets was more scalable and simpler.
Yeah.
The downside is when you get started, you're losing your nights and weekends. So
Yeah.
it's just a totally different animal. You mentioned the ego part and wanting to add locations and grow and scale, and I've been through that. And there's just like guys that go out there and say, "Oh, I want to be $1 million company. I want to be $1 million company." Why? Right?
Yeah.
For what reason? And I was the same way. Like at one point, I was like, "I want to be $1 million company," but looking back, it's like, that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Like it's just saying I want to be $1 million company, but not like for no. It's hard to understand it until you've been through it. But same thing with adding location. I wanted a second location, and it was going to be really cool to say I've got 2 locations and we're growing. The nice thing about when we did it was we were already servicing that market. We were already doing a ton of work over there. So literally adding that location, it basically just cut our fuel and labor costs.
Right.
So it was more tactical than it was, I want to grow into another market. That being said, it took 10 times more effort, and it was 10 times more expensive, and everything was way harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And for about, it wasn't a year, close enough. It was about a year. We lost our shirt.
Yeah.
And it just sucked until about 3-4 months ago when I finally got the right person, got things kind of going, and things started clicking, and we finally started making money. But up until that point, I mean, up until about 4 months ago, I regretted doing it every single day, and I was stuck. I had a 5-year lease. I got a $5,000 a month rent payment. Actually, I think it's $6,000 now. But it's just like I was so caught up in I wanted a second location and on paper I made it make sense, right? And it did make sense.
Right.
But I didn't have the knowledge and the experience to say, all right, I need to do this, this, and this to make this work.
Yeah.
So now we're looking at adding a third and a fourth next year. And it's a lot easier because I know, like, okay, this is where I need to be. This is what it's going to cost. I can move into that market and move into that location without the stress.
Right. Without thinking, man, that's an extra 20 grand that I thought I didn't have to come up with. Where did this come from? Right? Yeah. And that's what happens too, man.
Yeah. I mean, we easily lost over $100,000.
Yeah.
Now, I won't say lost. It cost easily over $100,000 that year.
Right.
Trying to just get it going and just spinning our wheels and just kind of going nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I would dabble in 1 or 2 different things, and I spent money on like air duct cleaning. I'm like, hey, air duct cleaning. Look at this. Talking to somebody. Oh yeah, hell yeah. And I'm like, got somebody trained up. It was going really well for like 3 months, and then that dude takes off, and I'm like, oh man, you got to be kidding me. That was like 25 years ago or something like that. I'm like, man, I just was like, I'm never doing that again. I'm just not, I don't know the business. It's different. Like you said, man, residential and fleet are completely different animals. The employees are so much different. It's like I always hear stories of somebody either, I'm a fireman, so I figured I'll just start kind of making a little extra money doing some window cleaning. Ladders are fine, and I'm doing it, and all of a sudden I'm making a ton of dough. But so I want to hire somebody else and then make this happen now. And then it's like the toughest first year of their life, going from technician, not knowing, and again, our egos. All right, whatever. 2 or 3 zeros away from the right side of whatever you're budgeting, because your ego is going to add a couple zeros to that, especially on the top line and not on the bottom line. All right. So just be careful about that. I've learned that too. But which basically, it gives more power to those guys and a lot more respect to those gals and guys out there that have been able to do it successfully and execute on that. But it's always more expensive than you think. And Platt always says you get into these purgatories of growth, and how do you budget for growth? I mean, you're just bringing in money, you're spending money, and the step ladder stuff with new equipment. That's coming with growth, but how do you actually get from that $500,000 to $1 million to $2 million to $5 million and so on? You got to invest money. It doesn't just all of a sudden, your customers don't go find new customers for you and say, hey, you want to get another $500,000. That's your goal. Let me go help you. And here's, you got to spend more money, which you may not have had to do for quite a while. But those are growing pains,
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like you hear a lot of people will say, I tried hiring employees and it didn't work out, or I make more money just doing it by myself. Right. That's true to a point, right? A lot of people, and I would be willing to bet that a lot of people that says that I tried having employees and it didn't work out, they probably stopped it at like 3 people, 4 people. Right. And then it's a tough spot to be in because you can't just jump to 10.
Right.
You got to get there as fast as you can, because if you're at 3 and one guy calls out on a Sunday morning or Saturday morning, you've just lost 25% of your labor force.
That's right.
Just like that. Versus you get to 10 and one guy calls out, you just lost 10%. So it's a lot easier for 9 people to make up that difference and spread that workload out across the whole team than it is to absorb it by 3 people. So it's tough, but I hate to give like advice. I just know what worked for me, but you literally have to put the foot down and grow as fast as you can to get through that 3 people, 4 people spot to where you can, get to 10 people. 10's like easy.
You're right, man. There is a purgatory on the growth side as far as recruiting and employment side.
Mm-hmm.
That is about 5. I always tell people, I'll every now and again I'll get somebody that calls up and wants to find out what we're up to and how we can help recruit for them. And they might have 2 employees. It's neighbor Joe and my cousin Fred, or a brother. And then I'm looking really for 1 or 2 more that aren't family. And then and I always say, once you get 3 or 4, you can, if you get tied on to some good people, you get that 3 or 4 that are really good guys, you really start to see some good things happening. But don't stop recruiting, because I'm telling you right now, once you get over 5, that's when turnover happens. I don't care what you do. We've all decided to be in high turnover industries. That's the facts. Every cleaning industry that we serve, lawn care and the rest, if you've got an hourly wage, anywhere from $15 to $35 an hour guy that's going out to fix something, clean something, or install something, there is high turnover in that industry. You go to any guy that owned a restaurant or gal that owned a restaurant, it's high turnover. The greatest leaders in the world have high turnover in our industry. It's just the facts. It's the way the labor market works. All right? In our industries. It was like that 30 years ago. It's like that today. It will be like that in 30 years. To your point, that does not mean you have to be short-staffed. You just need to keep recruiting, retain, knowing when you need to hire to. When you're fine with the 4 you got, that's the time you got to look to interview 2, 3, 4 more, because eventually that 3 months where you're going, this is awesome, Joe breaks an ankle and the other guy leaves and you didn't expect it. That always happens in 2 or 3, right? Always. And that's the time where you're going, now what do I do? And then you're back down to 2, you're back in a truck, and all hell breaks loose, and then you're wondering why you're in business. Always be recruiting, man. That's what we talk about. So you're one of the few that really, and I mean, a couple years back, I think everybody's kind of getting the hang of this thing now with recruiting, where it's not just, I budget, again, our ego is how many vehicles do we have on a road? How many clients do we have, and what's our revenue? That's what we love as entrepreneurs and business owners. That's what we talk about. How big's the fish, right? And so when we do that, we rarely would talk about budgeting for recruiting and what we should do about it. It was more of a pain in the ass than anything else. We were the first ones, Dan and I, to break into the cleaning industries and the home service industries, going, you don't have to get a temp agency anymore. You don't have to do it on your own anymore. You can't afford a full-time HR person, most of us, to do that, right? And so, direct hire companies want, $15,000 for one technician. That's not happening. So we came up with a business model based on what clubbed the shit out of us for years and years and years, and said, we better fix something, right? And so now we've got a bunch of competition, but that's good stuff. We now have competition saying the same things we are, and making it a priority that if you're going to own a business and grow, you've got to really budget and think about the recruiting end. You've done that really, really well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know how long ago it was. 4 years ago, maybe. I was at an event, and Tommy Mello, before Tommy Mello was like out there.
Yeah.
This was like, he was just kind of like just starting, doing his podcast, and he was just kind of getting out there, and he was speaking at an event, and we were hanging out with him afterwards, just sitting at a table. And we're like, man, like, I think that year he was going to do like 35 million that year. And we're like, how did you find enough people to do that? Because that was really kind of at the start of like when I guess everybody was kind of figuring out that recruiting was something we needed to really look at. And it was literally the most simple thing, and it's just stuck with me ever since then. Was, he said, I was able to hire and turn over enough people fast enough to find the best people to help me grow my company. And it just clicked. And ever since then, I'm like, okay, turnover doesn't bother me. Obviously, I don't want turnover just because people hate it here, right? I know that that's not it. And if it is a culture thing, like, we'll address it. But I just need to hire people and turn them over until I find the ones that fit. And when I find the ones that fit, I need to get in their circle and get them to bring in their buddies and their people, because there's a good chance that they're going to be the same or similar type of people.
Yep.
And I just need to run through them. And eventually we're going to recruit and find the right type of people to where we figure out what type of people to look for. And then we can kind of have a tighter circle, or a smaller net.
Right.
For us.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. And that is the name of the game. Basically, always be recruiting. That truly is what the defense strategy is against being short-staffed in a turnover industry. What else are you going to do? You just have to keep on going,
Right. And nobody wakes up or graduates high school and says, you know what? I think I want to be a power washer.
Right.
Or I want to wash trucks. Like, that's not a thing. So if I can be the stepping stone for a guy or whoever to go out and they can wash trucks and work for me for a few years while they're figuring it out, and I can get them to where they're going to say, you know what, I think I really want to join the Army. That's what I want to do. More power to you. I want to, go back to college and get a degree and do this. Perfect. I'm not going to get in your way. Like, I've appreciated you being here and everything you've done, but I'm not going to stop you from taking it to the next level. Yeah. I had a guy who left to go. It was still in the trades, but it was installing security systems, and he geeked out over that type of thing. And it was a 9 to 5, and good for you, man. Like, I'm not mad at it. You've been great for the 2.5 years you've been here. More power to you.
Yep. If there's any way to break it off with somebody like that. I remember we had a residential home cleaning business that we owned, and we were recruiting and starting up the recruiting and this and that. There was um, a lady that had been with the company for years before we bought it, and she was with us for another 4 or 5 years. I think she was in her 60s, and she just physically couldn't do the work like she used to.
Mhm.
And but the customers that she was servicing absolutely loved her, absolutely loved her. And so we were certainly willing, number one, with the loyalty she had and her dedication to the industry of being a cleaning technician for 20 years or whatever it was, coupled with the fact that, obviously they loved her. We were more than willing to realize that production rate's going to go down a little bit with somebody that's starting to age and hurt and that type of thing. We actually, and we didn't do this for anybody else, she earned it. We actually talked to the clients, let them know what's going on, and said, we would certainly like to have a conversation about having this as sort of a retirement for her.
Uh-huh.
She's going to be able to pick out a few, really, the clients she wants. You happen to be one of them that she really, really, really loves to come and help and work for. And they, of course, said, absolutely, we would love to do that. How phenomenal are you guys? If we ever find anybody that needs cleaning, we'll send them right to you. Just for that, the way you're treating Sean, that was
Uh-huh.
her name, and how this was going on. It's just taking good care of good people. I mean, the more, when I was young and starting out and feisty, and I was in my 20s, and it was like if somebody was with me for a year and a half, I'd get pissed if they were telling me they're going to move on somewhere. I'm like, it's just because I was immature and arrogant, and I was in it for me. And I realized, man, is that a mistake to make? And boy, it's a lot. I feel a lot better waking up in the morning when I lose somebody that's a good person. I
Yeah.
still have connections with people from 20 years ago that used to work for me. I saw somebody working part time, retired up at a grocery store, and she's happier and shit, waving at me and everything else, and went over. I mean, that stuff's that's gold, man. You can't ever pass that up.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some marketing stuff, because that's sort of and why don't we do this? Why don't we talk a little bit about? I'll set the table this way. I want to talk about some Fleet Wash Academy stuff
Okay.
specifically. What I'll do is I've talked to a number of people. Clip of guys, Ryan Fox and JC, and had Matt Hayden on, and then in a residential home cleaning space with Debbie Sardone and a couple of big players that have been around that in so it's really cool to see the residential home cleaning space go from 30 years ago to, hey, it's only for rich people, number one. And then I've got a niece that can clean. She can clean your house too. To then there's dual income people that are looking for people to take care of their home. And then all of a sudden it went from paying minimum wage or cash under the table to there's residential home cleaning technicians today, because of people like Debbie, Liz Trotter, Derek, a lot of people that created an association, put together some certain training groups and consulting groups, safety, all the things that go into professionalizing an industry. And it not only makes it more professional, more safe, but now we've got people that are able to make $50,000, $60,000 cleaning homes. Okay, that was, if you told me that 20 years ago, I would have laughed right through the door. I would have been, you're nuts. But it's happened because of people being dedicated. It's happening right now in the Christmas light hanging and holiday light industry. When I talk to people in my community, friends and neighbors, and I tell them, I got a customer I'm recruiting for 4 months for like 2 months out of a year. He's open 4 months a year and he's doing $3 million in sales. And they're looking at me like I'm nuts. And then they go, what the hell's he doing? And I say, he's hanging Christmas lights, man. they literally think I'm kidding, right? But that shit can't happen without Matt and Ryan and JC and those types of guys that now have mastermind groups, that have training, certifications, and really, really have elevated that industry to a place in a short few years. I know it doesn't seem like that short and that easy when you're talking to them. It's certainly not. but it's an amazing thing how they brought that industry to some professional level. I don't think people realized how fast they would do it. And I know I'm missing names in there, but you're sort of the leader in that with the fleet wash stuff, and I think that's admirable, and I think you're doing a hell of a job. How did that stuff come up with the Fleet Wash Academy? How did you get into that? You know, talk about what it is and what it's all about and where you're headed with some things.
Yeah. I guess first off, the between Ryan and JC and everything they're doing in that industry, like I'm not doing anything close to what they've done. They hats off to those guys. They're awesome. But as far as like how it kind of, man, how did we get started? It was, I don't know, several years ago, there was an industry event where they were trying to bring in some training on fleet washing, and there really, up until then, hadn't been any kind of training or anything dedicated to the fleet or truck washing space. It was all, you know, residential and washing houses and roofs and stuff like that. Christmas lights weren't even a thing at that point, I don't think. And it just, the event didn't go well. The class got interrupted a bunch, and it was just kind of chaos. And so after that, the guys that had put a lot of time into trying to put a presentation together and planning for the event, they wanted to actually give their presentation and help the people that were actually interested in it. So we just made a Facebook group and invited a bunch of people and told them like that's what we were doing. And originally the goal was just for them to have a platform to teach the one thing and be done. And man, the group grew to like, I don't know, 1,000 people or something pretty quick. And so after they did their presentation, we just kind of was like, you know what, like it's a pretty cool group. We'll just keep it. And, you know, it's a spot for people just to talk about washing trucks. And we tried not to like have it very vendor focused or like salesy, just guys helping, you know, people helping people. And later in that year, we decided to try to do our own little event. And we did our first one, I don't know, I think it was in February or sometime. It was in the middle of winter in Detroit, which it was a good event, but it was cold. And we had a really good success. I mean, we had people from all over the States. We had guys from, I say Canada, but I mean, we're really 10 minutes from Canada at that point. But guys from Canada, there was guys from South America, a guy from New Zealand, and kind of just went from there and with the goal to help people grow businesses. You know, a lot of these events were focused on how to do the thing, and a lot of these groups, it's guys like, how do I clean this roof or clean this deck or clean this, or how do I do this thing? And we wanted to focus more on just how to grow a business, right? How to recruit, how to know your numbers, how to sell, all the things that are needed to help you and your family. And that's kind of what we dug in on, and we did that for a few years, and we've kind of expanded. We do some one-on-one consulting and coaching and just hands-on training for guys that don't know how to do the thing and want to learn how to do the thing. We can do that, but yeah, really, I mean, it just kind of started from just trying to help people build a business, and everybody wants to start a business to get the freedom and the stuff that the business provides, and a lot of people get stuck. Again, we talked about earlier, you get stuck in that 1 person, 2, 3 person deal, and that's a tough spot to get through. So the goal was just to help people get where they wanted to be, and go from there.
I'll tell you, when I was asked to do a little spiel at the huge convention with Fleet Wash Academy, you guys had your own gig going on, like your own show within the show, really, is how I looked at it. I mean, you had the whole day. You had Mike was in there, Nate was in there, you were in there, I showed up somewhere in there, and I mean, you had dozens and dozens of people in the room for every single one. I was surprised at how many people were attended morning through the end of the day. People were in those rooms just listening and learning. And I've done IWCA, I've done the huge, I've done. I was just in Vegas last week, did ISSA. There's something crazy like 5,000 vendors and frickin' I don't know how 20,000. I don't know what it is. It's crazy. Did something there, and it's just I've never had a group, and it was a little bit smaller than maybe having 100 people or something, but there were 30 people, 40 people in the room. You might add 50 and Mike, and I mean, there was a lot of people in the room, but I've never had an audience really that asked that many questions. They were like really involved with it. They were, I mean, writing stuff down, and everybody was like asking questions. Once somebody started, then it's like three hands went up. Then it's like this. I mean, it was going, man. And I've never experienced that really before at any other. And I do a few a year, and that was pretty impressive. A lot of people had a lot of questions. I actually had a couple customers that I never knew were in Fleet Wash Academy there because they were doing some stuff too. They were doing a little bit of residential stuff too. But it's cool that it's kind of just organically happened under your leadership, and Nate's involved, I believe, a little bit too, obviously, and that type of thing. But you've got really, just from organically from wanting to help people to a bunch of people in the group now, and able to have your own little like show within the huge convention is super impressive. So kudos. And it doesn't sound like you're going to grab the bull by the horn. This is a huge endeavor and I want it to be this big, it doesn't sound like that, which is cool because you're actually still not looking at this as like a super high profit motive thing. But I think what you're going to find, and I hope this happens, that you're going to get pushed in that direction a little bit, whether you like it or not, because you've got a lot of people that are following and growing and wanting to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, so we did all in all, we've done, let's see, 2, 3, 4, I think 4 standalone events. And when we started, like, you had the huge convention, you had back when the UAMCC was doing their big deal every year, and that was kind of it. I mean, there might have been a spin-off, a little thing here or there, but that was it for like conventions. Yeah. So we were like, cool, let's do one in the winter when the truck wash guys aren't washing because you can't, and the house wash guys aren't washing because they can't. Let's do it then. So, we can roll with it. And then I think we did that Detroit, and then we did our next one was in Clearwater, Florida. And then after that one, I think about 10 different events showed up between January and March. And it was like everybody realized like this is a great time to do an event. So after that, it was just like there were so many events, and it's not cheap. We tried to make it at a price point that made sense and where we didn't lose money. And other than our last one, we were pretty successful at not losing money. Yeah. We never really made anything, but by the time you have a $250 ticket, then you got to get there, you got a hotel room, then you got to eat and all that, like minimum $1,000 for you to go to an event. Yep. Probably more realistically, like 2,000. Yep. And that's just one person. You start bringing a team member, or it's 2 of you, then it adds up. So it got to the point where it's like, how can we try to piggyback off another event? And the huge had kind of shifted gears to where they were more focused on let's build businesses. Let's not focus so heavily on the thing, and let's teach people how to grow businesses. And that kind of fit with where we were going. So the last year we got with them and said, hey, like, let's try to do this together. You've already got 2,000, 3,000 people coming. Instead of trying to make them go to another event and spend more money, they're already there. So it kind of worked out, and I'm sure we'll probably do something similar again next year, just because it's just easy. They're all in the same place. We're kind of very focused in on what the goal is to get out of one of these events. So
yeah, I think that's a brilliant strategy on how to get to the most people and help the most people. I think that's great. I think one of the things you do really, really well compared to maybe some others, and I think where you help the most people is in marketing. It's a real unique. It's not, commercial's always different than residential for sure. Residential seems to be, and maybe I'm wrong on this. I might be wrong on this, but I think residential can be a little bit more relationship than commercial. Commercial is pretty much price, and then once you get in, and then or you're referred over, or then the relationship builds. It's kind of like you have to have a relationship with commercial. I understand that, but they seem, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe they seem to be more price sensitive than residential. I'm not sure. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes and no. That's kind of like a double-edged sword, I feel like. In residential, I mean, if they know, like, and trust you, and you kind of build that rapport up front, it's the price, you kind of, that objection starts to move out of the way. With commercial, it depends. So if they've been down, a lot of these guys have been down the road. They understand. They've dealt with the chuck in the truck. The guy just like shows up with a bunch of junk and just hustling for beer money. Like, they've dealt with that guy. They've dealt with the big national company Fleet Wash or the franchises, and they understand that, hey, I need to spend a little bit more money to get what I want. So if that's the case, and you can, I don't know, it's hard to explain like how to figure that out, but it's more relationship up front, right? Because they already know what they're looking for. So if you can kind of understand their personality type and work with them on their level, you can close the deal. Now, if you're working with the guy who it's big corporate company and he's just shopping price, it is a little more price up front. What I don't do is I don't play the pricing game, right? Like, I'm not going to go in and beat somebody else's price just to sake of earn the business, because what's going to happen is I'm going to lose that customer the same way I got it. Somebody else is going to come in and beat my price, and they're going to be in. So that doesn't mean I won't get aggressive, right? I know where we need to be, and I know the cheapest that I can go and do something and still hit the number I want to hit. So I might be super aggressive, but I'm not going to go below that, right? I've got a hard stop. And if that means I don't close the deal, that's fine, because I'm going to follow up with them, and I'm going to stay in front of them, and I'm going to be in touch with them pretty much forever, right? And eventually they're going to realize that I don't like playing the price game, and I don't like buying, using the cheap guy, because it's great and then it sucks, and then I start over, and then it's good and it sucks, and then I start over. Yeah. And eventually they get tired of starting over, and they just want somebody they can rely on, that's going to show up and do what they say they're going to do. And I'm the guy who's been in front of them for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years and hasn't gone anywhere. So it's just, hey, you know what? We're going to pay a little bit more, and we're going to use this guy because clearly he's going to be around for a while. We don't have to worry about him showing up or not.
Yeah. I think commercial, more so than residential, is both. I mean, you can certainly get somebody that's hot, ready to make a move. Their budget's in. They don't like who they had before because he's the guy you talked about. They're ready to get a professional in there.
Yeah,
and that can happen quickly. But there is that long tag of just, that long tail where you got to keep following up. And I've always said, and I pound this home all the time, that marketing and sales is identical to recruiting. So when we're doing recruiting and we're collecting those names, they might not have showed up to an interview, although they passed and he had really scored really well. And we asked them to interview, but they didn't show up. It could have been for a number of reasons. It doesn't mean that, I hear that no shows. Sometimes it's a good, when I was 25, I probably wouldn't have called somebody that I had an interview with and I just got hired somewhere else. Okay. Doesn't make me a horrible guy. I'm just a young, dumb kid, but I would have been a good employee. Okay. I'm a hardworking dude. I just didn't make the call. I'm sorry. there's a lot of people like that, especially in a 3.6% unemployment rate that are just super busy. They don't even know who they applied for half the time.
Mhm.
They're just going boom, boom, boom. It's not, there's no relationship there at all. So we continue to go after that. And I remember listening to your marketing presentation because I stayed for that and wanted to hear it. And I remember I actually took notes down that they're still on my phone. And I'm sitting there just looking over and going, yep, I could put the word recruiting in for that too. Yep, that's exactly right, man. There's anything I was just going take that marketing out and that how long and the process and that spectrum of shit you got to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a number of clients that took you years to get. I mean, years, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
What is your marketing? Talk about marketing because I want to hear a few things, a few high points about marketing, and I'll let you wrap at it.
man, it's really honestly for us, it's simple, and I get what you're saying, how it crosses over because it's really just about staying in front of them. If we pitch or try to close a deal and they don't want to go with us at that time, but 4 years later, I'm still reaching out, every couple months, 3 months, and I'm still shooting them emails every now and then, and I'm still around. Like, it's easy to be like, hey, like, all right, I need somebody. I'm going to call that guy. Same thing with recruiting. Like, if you're brand new, it's your first year, it probably, I feel like you might agree with this, it's probably a little tougher to get people in the door because there's a little bit of uncertainty there, right? They want to make sure they're going to have a paycheck every Friday versus you've been around for 10 years. Odds are you're going to get paid on Friday.
Yep, right? Absolutely.
Same for sales. I mean, if you've been around for 10 years and you're constantly at their door, there's a good chance you're going to show up and do what you say you're going to do because you kind of stood the test of time, so to speak. And really, I mean, it's that simple. We just follow up.
Yep.
Again, always be recruiting. We're always following up.
The thing that's cool, I have a big sales background. I used to work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car and Leasing back 34 years ago or whatever. And I was in the rental end for like 6 months, and then they promoted me into the fleet management business where my job was to pound the phone all day long until I got a meeting. That's pretty much what it was. It's 100 phone calls a day, man, until you got somebody. So my job was pound the phone or you're presenting in front of somebody. That's it. That's all you're doing. That's all your job is, man. And I was really good at it, but I didn't particularly like it all the time. And then I got a management role. I was managing about 7 or 8 sales guys, and it was, I think I coined this phrase. I would call it creative avoidance because it's like you look like you're doing something. You might be trying to talk about putting your presentation together for. Your job is to be pounding the phone or at the presentation at 6 o'clock or 7 in the morning, put your presentation together. When business hours, you need to be calling people. That sounds old school and sort of cavemanish almost and shows my age, but that shit works still today to pound the phone a little bit. I know you pound the phone.
Yeah, I mean that's how we started it. We did. Not last year. Year before last, I think. I don't know. It's all a blur.
Yep.
Cold calls is our main. When we want to sell, that's our main deal. How we sell.
Yep.
And we closed just over $1 million in new business in 10 months. Primarily some of it came organically, but I'd say 90% was just beating down the phone and doing demos and just staying on top of people and staying in front of them. And it's the people that said no or didn't really respond right away in January were the same people that in September were calling us back and saying, all right, let's go, let's get started. It works. I mean, that's how we built it. That's how anytime we're pushing sales hard, that's how we do it. I've tried other things that work, but there isn't a single thing that works as good as just getting on the phone.
You got it.
in this business, you won't get 10 no's in a row.
Right. Right.
Guaranteed. There's no way, as long as you're not sounding like a fool on the phone, you're not going to get 10.
Yep.
It's just, it's never happened to me. It's never happened to anybody that I've showed how to do it. It's just, I don't know. I guess it's this industry, but I could see selling fleet through enterprise being a little bit different.
Right.
But this is a need that they have, and we're kind of fixing the problem for them. So it's an easier sell, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's I think it's a relatively young industry still compared to some other industries. I don't know that to be true or not. It just seems to me, because I never really heard about it until I started meeting you, talking with you a couple of years ago and stuff, and going, man, of course people have to clean. I just assumed they just had the big spray wash thing and they hired some dude to spray them all down there. I'm sure some do it, but obviously it's outsourced too, and it's big business.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know that I've never seen any truck other than mine that's a dedicated truck washing truck, other than Fleet Wash.
Yeah.
You know, that's all they do. So I mean, well, they're venturing out, but primarily that's what they do. So I mean, that makes sense. But it's not very often you see a truck washing truck go by.
Right. Right. And so is it, what does it cost to get, I mean, it sounds super expensive to get into fleet wash to me. You know, you got, sounds like a lot of equipment, or a lot of different, there's so many different, you got chrome, you got wheels, you got tires, you got all kinds of different stuff. And I could just see some super expensive mistakes or pissing some people off. You got a fleet manager you're dealing with. You got the driver, who is surely going to be particular about their truck, right? So you got a lot of people looking at your work. It's not just going up there and going like this, and if there's a little bit of mud or something on it, you're fine. You got to be. It's almost like detailing when you're fleet washing a truck, in a way. I mean, with the chrome and stuff that you got going on.
It depends. I mean, there's different levels, I guess. So the day of having you back in the day, at least from when I was a kid, like I remember all of the trucks you saw were all polished and they were pretty and they're just really clean, and all the chrome and stuff like you said. And I feel like that's changed to now it's more like the drivers don't care as much.
Okay.
They do. They want it to be clean. Like, just having a clean vehicle makes you feel good. But the ones that are just out there like chroming them all out, they're still out there. But honestly, we try not to service those customers, right?
Okay.
So there's companies out there that they wash. That's their customer. They do
Right.
more detailed and they're more expensive and higher end. I'd rather deal with a fleet manager,
Yep.
and not that we don't do a good job. I just don't want to try to cater to Bob with his polished out truck and making Bob happy. I want the fleet manager happy. I really want everybody happy, but it's just there's different levels. We're somewhere between a detailer and the guy who's just rinsed them all with water. We're kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's clean from, the driver's happy. We try not to do the polished stuff, but as far as like the cost to get in, the barrier of entry, I mean, if you're already washing houses, you've got everything you need to get started. Obviously, with anything, you can't get specialized equipment and stuff that's catered to what you're doing, but the same power washers they're using for houses, they'll work.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go as simple as a bucket and a brush, and you can spray some soap on and brush it down and rinse it off, and you're a truck washer.
Right. Right.
We use a two-step system from BioClean, but again, it's just a little more faster, more scalable way to do it. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little more expensive, and then obviously now we build our trucks specific to truck washing.
Right.
Well, obviously that costs even more money, but yeah, I mean, if you're already own a power washing company, odds are you probably already have everything you need.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So there's an ease of entry there if you're already doing the residential stuff. That's good to know. With I get exactly what you're talking about. With you do it. I had a residential home cleaning business for a while, and I always told the when we were training, I would say we don't need to be the best cleaning company as far as everything has got to be perfect. Okay.
Right.
We don't have to be that one. We have to be a reasonably priced company that does a consistent job every single time. There's and I called it and that's kind of what your aim is. And I called it the Big Mac theory so that they would understand it and remember it easier. I'm like, the Big Mac, man, they sell 10,000 a second. Okay. 10,000 Big Macs. I said, well, it must be the best burger in the world, best tasting burger in the world, right? Hell no, it's not.
No.
Must be the cheapest. Ain't cheaper no more. I could go to right across the street to Chesterland Tavern and get a nice burger my way every Monday for $5. I think a Big Mac's around $6 now. So the only other thing is it must be the healthiest burger in the world, right? Right. The reason they sell that damn thing that much is because it looks the same, smells the same, tastes the same every damn time it comes in a bag and is thrown in my car. That's why that thing sells more than any other food product in the country, in the world, is because it's consistent. It ain't the best, it ain't the healthiest, it ain't the cheapest. It's the most consistent.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. And you're spot on. I mean, being consistent, showing up. I mean, you can't be consistent and do a terrible job.
Right.
But as long as you set the expectation up front and they know what they're going to get and you consistently deliver on that, there's no reason for them to change. Yeah. Right? I've had guys, we've done demos and we've been more expensive and not by a ton, but a little bit more. And they're like, yeah, you did a better job, but I'm paying for this and I'm happy with this. So I don't see a need to spend more. It's like, fair enough. I still stay in front of you, and eventually something happens and we get in there, but it is what it is.
How many times have you gone to a restaurant a couple of times going, man, I dig this, whatever it is, a steak or a lasagna, whatever it is. And then like you go back 2 months later and it's not even on the menu anymore. Or they made it different. And I'm just going, I'm like, what are you're killing me when that happens.
Right.
Absolutely killing me. I feel like they just ruined my entire night out with my wife or my wife and kids or whatever it is. That's how I feel about that. That's just it might have tasted good, whatever the hell it was that they're making differently, but it's not what I was expecting. It's not consistent, and that just that ruins it for me. So, and that happens to all of us, whether it's a haircut or whatever the hell it is. I mean, when it changes and it's not consistent, the people in this country don't like it, and we'll go somewhere else right quick. All right, man, we're up about 5:05. I know you got stuff to do. I appreciate it, Eric, having you on, man. It's always good to talk to you. Appreciate everything you're doing out there for a lot of people. If there's anything, I'm gonna put the group Fleet Wash Academy group up here.
Yeah.
If there's any other website or something you want me to put up so people know how to reach out to you or something, let me know. Just let me know and I'll get it up there. You can message me on Facebook or whatever, and I'll get it up there, whatever you want. And then I think that's about it, man. If there's anything else you want to add, let me know.
Yeah, no, I mean, as far as how to get a hold of me, I mean, Facebook's probably the easiest way.
Okay.
Just Facebook or the Fleet Wash Academy, either one. But other than that, man, it's been fun chatting with you and hanging out. I definitely appreciate everything you guys do for helping us keep people coming through the door and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
All right, man. Sounds good. Everybody out there, Eric, have a real good Thanksgiving, buddy. Everybody out there, have a good Thanksgiving. Got a couple days into it. So I appreciate everybody out there. I'm very thankful for everybody out there that pays any attention to us. And if there's anything we can do for you, let me know, whether it's got to do with recruiting or fleet wash or whatever it's got to do with. If you've got a problem with your kid and you don't know who to talk to me. I got lots of problems with my kids, so I can help you out, maybe. Other than that, we'll be around next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to put some things up here to get in touch with Eric. God bless everybody. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah. Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.